Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Jerome. I'm with Arttitude. I'm the co-founder, and today we present the Das Blumelein project, and we have Agostina and Bethany, who are the co-founders of the organization. So welcome and thank you for being live with us.
Thank you, Jerome. Thank you. Thank you for hosting us. We appreciate it.
So I'm just trying to make sure that we are live on Facebook here. So Jerome, how can we find that? Is it on Arttitude's page or on your personal page?
It is on Arttitude's page.
Okay. I'm looking for it. You can go ahead and chat a little bit while I look for this one and make it work.
So, Jerome, you've been doing these conversations with artists in Dallas twice a week now, right?
Yes, on Tuesdays and Thursdays we've been doing that.
That's amazing. And what kind of artists have you guys been showcasing? I caught the tail end of yesterday's, which was really cool.
Yeah, we've been showing visual artists. Your organization will be the first organization where it's a performance, where you do performance, especially with music. But we've had a lot of Latinx and minority artists online, which is amazing. So they've talked about their work, how COVID is currently affecting them, and their artwork. And
we've been showing visual artists.
Sorry, guys.
So no, that's okay.
Go ahead.
And so it's been really good. Like yesterday, we had Kel Heinzen, who kind of demonstrated. She painted on a canvas, and she told us what her artwork was about her, about her community, and about issues that affect Black women, and especially Black women artists. So it was really good to hear that.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thanks for creating this platform for us, Jerome. We really appreciate it. It's been a difficult time trying to switch everything over to digital, and especially everything that Das Blumelein project does is so collaborative based. That everything we do is working with people. So now it's been okay. How do we creatively put all of this online? And it's definitely been a little bit of a learning curve, but I'm pretty proud with how we've managed it, Bethany.
I am still trying to figure it out. I have found Arttitude's live watch party here, and I'm just trying to share it with our DBP page. So bear with me. Sorry.
So, but I can talk about like how we met, Arttitude and Das Blumelein. So we met through Cannon Flowers, who at the time was the commissioner for the City of Dallas Office of Culture and Affairs. I forget what they're called now, Arts and Culture.
Arts and Culture, yeah.
And so we met, and y'all were really beginning at that time, and that's been a couple of years, or about a year and a half.
Yeah, so, we're going on our second year. Yeah.
And so our relationship has grown where y'all are finally growing a relationship, building a board, and things like that. And we've been happy because we've been happy to kind of help you in that direction, or move in that direction.
Definitely. Yeah, Bethany and I guess we can also backtrack a little bit, kind of tell people how Bethany and I met, which was almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
Now, Bethany?
Yeah, we met in 2011.
2011.
Math.
Yeah.
We were not math majors. Yeah, we met in 2011 in Cleveland, Ohio. Augustina and I were, I was in grad school for my master's, and Augustina was in her undergraduate. We were studying opera at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And we actually met because of our love of jazz and fashion. And we felt kind of like rebellious. We would like sneak off after opera rehearsal and like do weird like jazz shows at like local restaurants in Cleveland. And so we were kind of like these, I don't know, we felt like a little bit rebellious in that. So that was kind of our my first intuition that this was going to be somebody who was willing to break rules in the name of art. And then we kind of went our separate ways. For a few years, we were singing opera. I went on to get my doctorate, and Augustina went on to get her master's at the University of North Texas. And we actually ended up really reconnecting when we both ended up in Berlin, Germany. We had both moved there to try and become, monetarily successful with our opera. And also to find some creative fulfillment in this art form that we really weren't finding. And we actually ended up going there separately, but we connected in Berlin, and we were going on all these auditions, and we were just really trying to fit, a square peg in a round hole by just making this career choice work for us. It was a very isolating career choice. It really felt like we were having to, kind of tamp down any kind of creative freedom in order to fit into a box, in order to get hired, in order to be successful. And one day we took a trip outside the city to visit one of the concentration camps that's kind of outside Berlin. It's called Ravensbrück. And we went, and it was an all-female camp, and we were reading about all these stories, and we just had this really intense experience connecting to the human story. And it was that day that we both decided to create something that meant more to us than simply just trying to make a career path work, but create something outside of ourselves. And that's how DB Project was formed, and that's why it has a weird name. It's why
it has a difficult name. Yep. Yes,
it's Das Blumelein Project, and so we call it DBP or DB Project because we recognize that we were in a German-speaking country, and it was formed from this experience that we had. I mean, it means like the little flower, the flower bud, and it's kind of representational of this idea that that art and creativity and collaboration always starts as kind of a small idea and a small kind of flower that can open up and bloom into something, bigger than yourself once you kind of invite others to join. So this was kind of the forefront of everything. And from there, we really started breaking a lot of rules and creating something new, which has been really, really exciting for us. So,
it started really small with just Bethany and I putting our heads together and kind of putting our resources together and say, how are we going to create this thing, X thing, right? Whether it was a performance or a video or anything that would give us a little bit of creative freedom. And then we realized how many other artists felt this way as well. How many artists felt stifled, or maybe just not free to make choices. And so we've brought them all in with us, and that's kind of been how DBP has grown these last 2 years, is bringing in all kinds of different artists, painters, videographers, chefs, multimedia performers, textile artists, candle makers,
jazz musicians,
jazz musicians.
We've taken piano, vocal music, and had arrangers put it to string quartet, and then we took a string quartet on the road through Texas and did a tour, and we've just done some quirky things. We did something really funky last year in Breckenridge. We did a residency there, and we worked with a sculpture artist, and she created these edible sculptures, and we created a show within that and filmed it and staged it. And we've worked with a candle maker before. So he created scents that matched the musical experience for a show. And we've just done all sorts of really funky things that we never allowed ourselves to even dream of when we were trying to fit into that, one path through, right? And I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I don't remember who it was, but I was talking about how growing up, I never called myself an artist.
Right.
And I never felt like the creative one, which is so funny. Because Og and I joke about like my kooky ideas now, but um, you know, I felt talented and I felt like a hard worker. And, you know, I knew that musically, like if I worked and I practiced and I studied and, you know, I could perfect this technique, but I never felt like I had something to say. And this platform has really allowed me to feel like I have something artistic to say. And therefore, the most joy that I get out of this project is actually handing that to somebody else and saying, some other artist, and saying, hey, you know, we think you have a story to tell. Would you like to collaborate? You know, we think that what you do is really interesting, and we want to hear your story. We want to hear what you have to say. And so weirdly, what started out as a way for us to express for ourselves has turned into this way for us to bring others in and bring other types of artists in that we never would have met or worked with or been open to had we stayed in kind of our traditional paths. Yeah.
Definitely. I also see a comment coming in from Jade, Jackie. It's almost like we're on the cusp of a new kind of renaissance. That's well done, ladies. That's really sweet. Yeah, it feels that way. It feels like we're paving a new path for these classical art forms, and just trying to breathe a new life into them. So thank you for your kind words. We appreciate that.
You know, and I think something that's really interesting to me is, you know, we often hear like artists and musicians can be really self-centered and can be really closed off and, you know, not share with each other as a way of making sure that their art is, you know, contained and, you know, they're getting credit and all of these kind of horrible things that are said about artists. And what's so funny is that we've really experienced the opposite of that. Like, we've experienced this outpouring of creative energy, and we've really been blessed by so many free thinkers. And every time we get into a studio space or a performance space or even a room just to talk about possibilities, I am just dumbfounded at what our possibilities are when we bring more people in. And so, you know, the biggest part of what we do is saying to these artists, like, what do you think we should do? And then like finding a way to pay them to do this work, right? Finding a way to make them feel and to let them know that we value their work, right? And I think it's so important.
Yeah, and I think that's why really we decided to become nonprofit and not just kind of stick to the model of a band or a duo, you know, group that performs sometimes. We decided to take a more official route so that we could find funding to support these artists financially. And like Bethany said, you know, show their value to people and give them those opportunities. So we'd like to...
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I think that's a really good segue into the project that we were working on before everything hit the fan.
Yes. Our biggest project to date, actually. Das Blumelein project. A year ago, we were doing a residency in Colorado, and Bethany and I applied for the Elevator project with AT&T Performing Arts Center to produce a show in conjunction with their 2020-2021 season. And it was set to premiere in a couple of weeks, actually. And so for about 9 months, we have been planning and producing and directing and trying to piece together this show from you know, that means so much to us. And due to COVID, we've had to put all of that on pause. And that has been, I think, a little bit, as a lot of artists feel right now that have lost work, a little bit of a grieving process, right? Grieving all of these changes, and the fact, you know, this big show that we were so excited to produce and now have kind of had to, you know, put a pause on. But we decided, you know, that we wanted to keep creating because that's the thing that is going to make us happy and that's going to get us through this quarantine.
And also, we were so fortunate to have a locally cast, group of artists be a part of this production. So, all of our singers, all of our dancers, our artists, our creative, the directors, everybody was from Dallas or living in Dallas. And so I think another huge part of this aspect is that we think it's so important to keep making, or to make sure that these artists, are still going to have a voice and have a place to perform and have a place to create after this is done and during. So a big part of what we've been doing, we were racking our brains when this all started, and we were seeing all these other arts organizations like making virtual choir videos and like
virtual orchestras,
and we were like, oh my God, like, is that what we have to figure out how to do? Just to make sure that, we're helping our artists. And we realized that, again, like that's not, that didn't really feel right to us for our group. And we don't have to follow that vein. And so we slept on it a little bit, and we ended up coming up with something completely different. We had the pleasure of collaborating with an artist who is based sometimes in New York, sometimes in Marfa, I believe. She's a visual artist and a culinary artist. And we knew that she was struggling artistically. And so we reached out to her, and in DVP fashion, we asked her if she wanted to collaborate. And we asked her what she was feeling and what she was going through, and, what she missed. And we kind of landed on this theme of home and family. And really, I don't know, what everyone else's experiences have been during this, but part of my experience has been this, both this kind of beautiful reconnection with my family,
and friends,
people that I haven't spoken to in a long time, and those people know that I love them, and know that I'm there, but I haven't taken the time to connect with them until this world, right? And so weirdly, with our isolation, we're finding ways we're cooking more, and we're cooking recipes that our families have taught us, and we're reaching out to friends, and we're telling old stories, and we're having Skype happy hours, and
game nights, and
so we decided that we wanted to do a collaboration with Romy that kind of had this theme of family and family history and cultural history.
Well, we can show the video, and then we can talk about how the video was made and all of those good details.
Let's do it.
Acariciame en sueño el suave murmullo de tu suspirar, como ríe la
So y'all are live now. The video's off.
Oh, okay.
Oh, technology.
Yeah, we're working on it. It's really funny trying to teach virtually. I'm not savvy with the tech stuff, but we all got to learn.
Yes. Well, we'd love to tell you guys a little bit about how this collaboration came to be and how it was filmed and how we pieced it all together to make that video that you just watched. So, Beth, do you want to talk a little bit about the audio first, since we made that first?
Yeah. So, in the midst of us trying to figure out what we wanted to do, how to be creative, how to collaborate with all these restrictions, we were having all of these issues trying to figure out like how to record something live, separately with all of the musicians that we wanted to work with, et cetera, et cetera. And we remembered that we had done a recording almost a year ago to the day in Augustina's old apartment in Plano, Texas. She had just moved out, her and her husband, and so we had this beautiful kind of empty apartment. And one of the things that DB Project is always looking for is a space to perform.
Yes.
That's a lot of people joke, like when they're like, oh, like how can we help your organization? And we're like, yes, money's awesome and money's helpful, but do you have a space that we could perform in? And so that's kind of like our big thing. And so whenever we get a space that's weird and quirky, we always jump on it. So we reached out to some musicians, and originally we were going to do kind of like a video in the space, and it just didn't end up turning out that way. But we had some fantastic musicians that wanted to collaborate with us. So we had 2 guitarists,
Mike Kochek and Bob Baker.
Yes, and then we had Roy Gonzalez also reach out and collaborate with us. He's on the trombone. And then we had Mike Jovicki on the viola, and then Og and I singing vocals. And so we all just kind of packed into this tiny studio, like 600 square feet, maybe, studio apartment. And I'm sure your neighbors thought we were nuts. And we recorded these songs. And a big inspiration for these songs were our cultural backgrounds. So Augustina sang the first piece, and it's a Spanish song that really is connected to her grandfather and her family heritage. And then I sing the second piece in kind of this like old antiquated Italian, and it's an old Italian canzonetta, and it relates back to my family heritage and my family that came over from Sicily. And so we both we melded these 2 old they're like a mixture between pop and opera. They're like opera
tango
almost.
And definitely.
Yeah. And we recorded these pieces and we arranged them with the help of these musicians. And I remember we couldn't pay them. We fed them empanadas, and
Yes.
and we had this beautiful recording, and we were like, well, we'll figure out what to do with it someday. And so we remembered, a couple weeks ago that we had this, and we instantly thought of Romy because she's so, her visual art and her culinary art is so kind of connected to culture. And so we knew that she was somebody that we wanted to reach out to for a collaboration with this. And I'll let you.
Yeah, that she could kind of take this recording and build her idea on top of it. So I sent her the recording. I said, hey, this is what this recording means to us. This is why we did it. This is how we did it. We want to be able to produce something during this isolation period. And if you're interested in creating something visually that we could layer on top of this audio, please let us know. And she reached out immediately and was like, yes, I am isolated in Valentine, Texas, which for those of you who don't know where Valentine, Texas is, it's near Marfa.
Nobody else does either.
Yes, it is way out west. I think they have like a post office and that's it. And she was like, I'm in this old house. It was a musician's house. And I think he is like, he's a set designer. So we had a lot of these random old props props around. And so, one of the things that whenever a collaborator says yes, we always say, okay, you run with it and you come back to us when you've got questions, And so we gave her the recording and I said, I need an 8-minute something visual for 8 minutes that we can layer,
which is
that
a long
fits this
time,
narrative,
actually.
which is a long time. Yeah. And so she kind of came back and forth. She was like, well, I'd love to film something in the desert because I'm out here. And so she went out and tried to film that a few times and the wind was just insane and it wasn't happening. And so she was like, okay, going back to the drawing board. What about something indoors, because that's something that I can control. And also everybody is indoors right now, right? Everybody's trying to create something indoors, whether that's, baking bread or like making everything is like, what can you do indoors? And she's like, I'm going to make this indoors. I'm going to create this video for you guys. And so we talked a little bit about the inspiration for it. And, her idea was to create these tableaus. So these
vignettes,
these little vignettes. So it's almost like the idea of a still life, like what would be a painting, but then there's slight movements to it. And so she was very, very inspired by a Russian film director and then a Czechoslovakian kind of feminist, really kind of revolutionary filmmaker, female filmmaker, excuse me. Ooh, alliteration. And so she was like, okay, what can I make with this? I'm going to do, we talked a little bit about, our family inspiration. So we thought, well, why don't we create a narrative around our grandfather's story? Because both Beth and I's family, immigrated here, and they kind of have these like similar Italian background lineages. And so she was like, great, let's do opera, food, and art, because that's what all of us have in common. That's what
all the good things in life.
All the good things in life. And so she did this first tableau that was kind of Traviata-esque, where she was playing Violetta. There's the rose, and she sewed that silk dress by hand. She was coming, down from New York to Valentine during isolation when COVID started to hit New York really badly. And she was telling me that her fabric guy, because she has a fabric guy, was like, hey, I've got all this silk I need off my hands. Do you want it? And she was like, okay, I guess I'll take it with me. And so she took these yards of silk to West Texas with her, and she ended up building this dress for this video, which is amazing. And then
it's stunning.
It's stunning. Yeah. And then the second vignette with the flower crown, which is, pays homage to kind of our name, Dust Blumelein Project, and the little bud that Bethany mentioned earlier. And then it was kind of such a theatrical performance, kind of this idea of like circus and ballerina, and, there's this like very feminine aspect to it. And so she kind of played to the theatrical arts in that vignette. And then there's a moment where you see kind of this still life of a food. You see like, the wine glass and so that was kind of her take on the tribute to food. And then at the end, in the house that she was staying in, she found all these old opera records. And one of them that was her favorite was Madame Butterfly. And so she said, at the end, I'm going to put in this piece that references opera, right? And I'm going to act out the last act from Madame Butterfly where, she kills herself. And so...
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, in case you didn't watch the video. Sorry.
Or you haven't seen Madame Butterfly.
But, oh yeah, that's true. Still great. Go watch it. But what was so insane is that she filmed this, with the help of, I think one friend that she called out, and then she shot it straight 10 hours in one room. And she did it on an iPhone 5S because that's what she had, with no Wi-Fi. I think she had to go to like a friend's house to to find Wi-Fi so that she could edit on Visco. So she made these little video tableaus, and then she found a way to piece them all together. And so then she sent us an 8-minute video, and then we layered that on top of the audio to create what is the Isolation Project. What is this video? So yeah, that's kind of how it was created.
Well, I want to just chat really quickly about, our experience with getting to work with an artist like this. And while I do that, Og, if you wouldn't mind posting a link to the video for anyone who showed up after we viewed it in the comments, that'd be really helpful.
Yes.
But, going back to what we said, and I'll keep this brief, but at the beginning, the most fulfilling part of this project for us is the collaboration with other artists. And so I think for me, getting to help create a piece of this, in terms of the music and, what inspired me, and then setting that free and then letting the other artist do their thing, right? And then we're blessed and we get this beautiful gift back of creativity and collaboration on their end that, that we don't even see until the finished product. And so, watching these vignettes in isolation was really, really meaningful and interesting for me. I know in the first one, I was really struck by the fact that she came out of the frame, right? And she looked at the camera and she was very much engaged. And then in the second vignette, the flower crown kind of covers her eyes. So we don't really get to see into that window, but we have a mirror, right? So we're mirrored back. And then in the last one, of course, we're like watching something incredibly intimate. And I think that all of this, kind of the overall and overarching theme here is that in isolation, we're all feeling this desire to be seen and to be connected. And it's really not something that we can do in our normal way. And so this project has really, and Romy's work, in these vignettes, have really just been this kind of beautiful expose on, what it feels like to not be connected, to not be seen, to not have what we take for granted. And so, that kind of being said, we are. We don't really know how long this goes. And so I think that in the future here, we're really going to expand in the ways that we can collaborate in isolation like this and keep going with those ideas.
With these new ways. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you, Jerome, so much for having us on. Thank you, Arttitude, for giving us this platform to share the video and to kind of give some insight on how it was made.
Yeah.
No, you're welcome. And anytime we can collaborate in the future would be great. On our end, we posted your website. We posted the link to where they can watch the video if they missed it.
Thank you.
And again, the reason why we do this is to support artists. So those of you who are watching, you can go to the Blumelein and you can donate there, or you can text DB Project to 44321.
Yes, and we are fiscally sponsored by Arttitude, so
Right.
we function as a 501c3 nonprofit, and 100% of any donations that we get go straight to our artists. So
to artists, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of artists lost work during this time, and so Arttitude has done this really amazing thing where they're trying to raise funds to kind of get artists back on their feet at this time. So if you guys would like to donate to the cause, we greatly appreciate it. And just even thank you for tuning in today and hearing our story. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, have a
All
good
right.
afternoon,
Jerome.
everyone. Right, bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.